You think you're above the law because you've got platinum records? The judge's voice cracked like a whip through the stale courtroom air. Snoop Dogg sat calmly at the defense table, fingers interlaced, sunglasses on despite the fluorescent ceiling lights. His attorney shifted uncomfortably in the seat beside him. "I'm speaking to you, mister." "Broadus," the judge snapped, slapping a hand on the bench. "Not to your persona, not to the rapper, to you." Snoop didn't flinch. He tilted his head slightly, as if trying to catch a different angle of the man berating him. "Your Honor," his lawyer interjected, trying to cut in. "If I may—" "You may not," the judge interrupted. "We're in my courtroom, and I won't have it turned into a circus. This isn't a concert stage." Whispers swept through the gallery like a breeze through dry leaves. Phones buzzed silently in pockets. Twitter fingers itched. No cameras were allowed inside, but word was already leaking out. Snoop Dogg being dressed down by a federal judge. The charge: a minor appearance in support of a friend's cannabis-related court case in Los Angeles. Snoop wasn't even on trial. He was there as moral support, but the judge clearly had a different agenda. "Let the record show that the defendant was smirking while the court was addressing him," the judge said to the clerk. Snoop leaned forward, calm, unshaken. "You call this justice?" he said, voice low, even. "Feels more like a roast." The judge's face turned a deeper shade of red. "That's it," he barked. "For you're in contempt, bailiff." Suddenly a voice from the hallway broke through the tension. "Your Honor, we need to speak to you immediately." Two plainclothes agents stepped in. The taller one handed over a folder. The courtroom stilled. The judge read for no more than 15 seconds before his jaw tensed, and his hand started trembling. "Court will recess for 10 minutes, he announced abruptly. "Now." He stood and exited through his chamber door, the agents following closely. Snoop didn't move. Neither did his attorney. The room buzzed louder now, like a beehive struck by a stone. The tension had shifted. Something wasn't right. A reporter in the back whispered to her colleague, "That folder, it had the DOJ seal." 10 minutes turned into 15, then 20. When the door finally opened, the judge emerged, but not alone. The two agents flanked him, and this time their hands weren't empty. "Judge Carter," the taller one said, voice firm, "you're under arrest for obstruction of justice and evidence tampering." Gasps erupted. Someone dropped a phone. "You have the right to remain silent," the agent began. Snoop slowly stood up, one brow raised. 7 minutes, he muttered to his lawyer. 7 minutes ago he was threatening you with contempt, his lawyer replied, stunned. The judge didn't make eye contact with anyone as the cuffs clicked shut around his wrists. Outside the courtroom, word spread like wildfire. The judge who'd mocked a hip-hop legend was now in federal custody. And Snoop? He just walked out the front doors, head high into the LA sunlight. Want to know what dirt they had on the judge? Or how Snoop ended up there in the first place? Keep watching and hit that subscribe button, because this story's just getting started. 2 weeks earlier, Snoop Dogg had been at a fundraiser in Inglewood, shaking hands and dropping lines with local youth when he got the call. It was Malik, his longtime friend and former bodyguard, on the other end. "Bro, I need you." Malik's voice was strained, anxious. "They trying to bury me over something I didn't even touch." Snoop had heard Malik's name in whispers around LA lately. A dispensary license, shady paperwork, allegations of bribery, but Malik had been clean for years, built his cannabis shop from scratch. Legal, certified, legit. "Tell me where," Snoop said. "Downtown, Monday morning. They got me in front of Judge Carter." Snoop didn't hesitate. "I'll be there." And he was, hood up, sitting quiet in the back row. He didn't expect to be recognized. He sure didn't expect the judge to drag him into the spotlight. But Carter had seemed almost eager to flex his authority, mocking Snoop by name, as if the courtroom was his own personal theater. Now, with the judge behind bars, everything was upside down. Snoop met Malik outside the courthouse steps the next day. The air smelled like car exhaust and roasted street peanuts. Reporters swarmed, but the two men ignored them. "Man," Malik said, still wide-eyed. "What happened in that room?" Snoop gave him a half smile. "Let's just say the system tripped over its own shoelaces." But the truth wasn't as casual. After the hearing, one of Carter's former clerks came forward anonymously. The clerk had seen sealed case files disappearing, timelines altered, favors granted. There were whispers Judge Carter had been accepting under-the-table donations from competitors in the cannabis licensing racket, businesses who wanted Malik out of the way. The Justice Department had been watching for months. And Snoop's high-profile presence in court, it triggered a media flare that forced their hand. When footage of Carter publicly berating Snoop hit social media, federal agents fast-tracked their evidence presentation. The folder delivered in court had sealed his fate. Back in Long Beach, Snoop sat at the edge of his home studio scrolling through the day's headlines. Carter cuffed, judge arrested after mocking Snoop Dogg in courtroom showdown. From the bench to the back seat, L.A. Judge boosted for corruption. Snoop Dogg just watched the system check itself. It wasn't celebration, he felt. It was something closer to exhaustion. He thought about all the times he'd seen friends fall through cracks in that same system. Times when the truth didn't come out. Times when it did and no one cared. But today the world was watching. He picked up his phone and called his mother. "So you good, baby?" she asked immediately. "I'm all right," he said. "But I didn't expect that judge to come at me like that, like I didn't belong in there. Baby, some folks still don't know how to handle a black man walking free, strong, and successful. Especially when the truth's not on their side." He nodded even though she couldn't see him. "That's why you showed up," she said. "Not just for Malik. For everyone who needed to see that seat at the table isn't just for them." He sat with that for a moment, and when he finally put down the phone, he wasn't thinking about headlines anymore. He was thinking about what came next. A week after the courtroom explosion, Snoop sat across from a young woman in a modest office off Wilshire Boulevard. Her name was Nina Vasquez, investigative journalist for an independent LA outlet. She'd been chasing the Judge Carter story for almost a year, and she had something Snoop needed to see. She slid a manila folder across the table. "You've been on their radar," she said. "Not because you did anything illegal, but because you're in the way." Snoop opened the folder. Inside were printed emails, redacted memos, and a list. 10 names, all tied to California's cannabis equity program. At the top, Malik Johnson. A few lines down, Calvin Broadus. He looked up. "Why am I on this?" "Because your influence could protect the others," Nina said. "They're afraid you'll shine too much light on how crooked this game really is." Nina explained. Under California law, cannabis licenses were supposed to be awarded fairly, with priority to communities harmed by the war on drugs. But shady investors, many with political ties, were buying influence, rigging inspections, pushing out small business owners like Malik. Judge Carter, it turned out, had been the legal muscle behind those schemes. Denying appeals, slowing down licenses, and in some cases, taking payments to disappear files completely. Nina leaned in. "You being in court that day, that wasn't just support. That was a threat to them. Your name shifts narratives." Snoop leaned back, quiet. He wasn't surprised. Not really. He'd been in this kind of game before, just under different names: music, culture, policy. Every time he tried to speak for his people, someone found a way to twist it. But this wasn't about a diss track or a press statement. This was federal, systemic. "So what now?" he asked. Nina hesitated. "You could walk away, let Malik and the rest fight this in court. Or," she pulled out a flash drive and set it beside the folder. "You could use this. These files show Carter wasn't acting alone. There's a network." Snoop stared at it. Later that night, back in his home studio, he played old tracks, letting the beat loop as he sat in silence. He wasn't scared, but he was tired of always being the one they looked at when the fight got loud. Still, when he plugged in the drive, it didn't take long to see the pattern. Emails between Judge Carter and city council members, memos discussing delays on certain flagged applicants. One phrase kept appearing: high visibility disruptors, and in parentheses, Broadus. He exhaled, deep, steady. They weren't just trying to silence the system's critics, they were trying to erase them. The next morning, Snoop made the call. "Nina, we go public." She didn't ask if he was sure, she just said, "Give me 72 hours." What followed was a three-part exposé that shook the city's political foundation. Nina released everything: names, documents, recorded calls. It spread fast. And with Snoop backing the story, the media couldn't ignore it. City Hall went into panic mode. 2 council members resigned within days. Investigations reopened. And Malik? His license was reinstated in under a week. Still, Snoop knew this was just the surface. One night, he and Malik stood outside the reopened dispensary. Neon lights buzzed overhead, the scent of fresh paint still in the air. "You didn't have to ride this hard," Malik said. "But you did." Snoop shrugged. "They put my name on that list like it was a warning. I took it as an invitation." Malik laughed. "You always had a way of flipping the script." The first sign was subtle: a black SUV idling too long outside Snoop's compound. Then came the routine inspections, first at the studio, then at Malik's shop. Men in dark jackets, no name tags, asking vague questions and taking photos without permission. At first, Snoop brushed it off. He was used to attention. But by the end of the week, things escalated. His manager, Terrence, showed up tight-lipped. "Someone just tried to freeze one of your accounts," he said, placing a printout on the table. "Came through under a DOJ audit flag, except there's no official inquiry." Snoop scanned the document. His name, a fake docket number, a bank notification buried in red tape. "This retaliation?" he asked. Terrence nodded. "Quiet and dirty. They want to shake you, make you back off." Later that night, Snoop met Malik at a small bar in Baldwin Hills. No cameras, no entourage, just 2 men nursing bourbons and weighing options. "They think I'll fold if they hit me in the pockets," Snoop said. "I've been broke before, money don't scare me." Malik wasn't smiling. "Yeah, but this ain't about broke, it's about leverage. They're trying to find pressure points." He wasn't wrong. The next morning, Nina called. Her voice was tight. "Snoop, I need to warn you. Someone's leaking pieces of your past to the media. Stuff that never even made it to public record." Within hours, gossip sites lit up. Half-truths, sealed documents, whispers from decades ago suddenly resurfacing. Most of it was nothing new, old arrests, long-dismissed charges. But it was calculated, coordinated, a character assassination campaign disguised as nostalgia. "I knew they'd try to flip the spotlight," Nina said over the phone. "But this is surgical. Someone high up wants to discredit you fast." Snoop sighed. "Let them. I don't play perfect. I play real." But what shook him more came 2 nights later. He was walking to his car when he noticed the back gate was ajar, slightly unlocked. He froze. Security should have been tight. The cameras were working. But when he checked the footage, 10 minutes were missing. Gone. Clean cut. No signs of forced entry. Nothing taken. Just enough to say, "We were here. We can be again." Snoop didn't call the cops. He called Terrence. "I need everything double. Security, cameras, background checks. Whoever's playing this game came in quiet." Terrence didn't ask questions, he just moved. And then came the unexpected, an invitation to a private meeting with a U.S. attorney. No paper trail, no official summons, just a back-channel message through a mutual acquaintance in D.C. Malik was skeptical. "They lured you into court last time. Now they want a backroom." Snoop wasn't naive, but he also knew when someone was trying to cover their tracks. The meeting was in an underground parking garage near downtown, straight out of a spy movie. The U.S. attorney, a man named Langston, wore a navy suit and tired eyes. "I'm not here officially," he said, "but I need you to understand. What you exposed, it shook people, big people." Snoop raised an eyebrow. "And?" Langston hesitated. "There's a file circulating, internal, not authorized. It names you as a potential instigator. It's not law enforcement, it's political." Snoop folded his arms. "So what, I'm a problem now?" Langston looked him dead in the eye. "To the wrong people, yeah, a big one." As he walked away, Snoop realized this wasn't just about Malik or Carter. This was a web, and he was standing right in the middle of it. It all came down to one decision. Snoop stood at the edge of the rooftop parking lot overlooking downtown Los Angeles. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the skyline. From this height, the city buzzed below him. Horns, sirens, laughter, life. But up here, it was just him, a manila envelope in one hand, and a voice message replaying in his ear. Langston's warning echoed again. They're preparing a federal review. If you move forward with that file, they'll come at you full force. IRS, ATF, every acronym you can think of. He'd heard worse, faced worse. But this time the stakes weren't just his. If he pushed the button, others would be dragged into the light. Malik, Nina, maybe even his family. Still, Snoop knew silence would cost more. That morning, Nina had uncovered the last piece. A payment trail leading from Judge Carter straight to a private lobbying group. Masked donations, funneled through shell companies, influencing cannabis policy and suppressing equity access. The group had tentacles in state agencies, legal firms, even the mayor's office. It was all there. Black and white, verified, explosive. Snoop texted Nina, "Drop it all." No edits. Then he walked into the studio and hit record. No beat, no hook, just his voice, raw and direct. Too many of us been playing by the rules only to find out the game's been rigged since day one. You build your own lane, they try to bury it. You speak the truth, they paint you as a threat. Well, guess what? Some of us ain't scared of being the villain in their story if it means the truth finally gets told. He paused, then continued. They tried to check me for showing up in court. They tried to freeze my accounts, leak my past, and rattle my people. But I'm still here, and I ain't moving, not for them. Not for fear. He ended the track with a quote from his mom. "If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything." The post went live at midnight, his voice over stark black and white images, with links to Nina's full expose in the caption. By noon, it was everywhere. Free the System trended across platforms. Celebrities reposted. Local organizers marched. City officials held emergency press briefings, and within 48 hours, the Department of Justice announced a formal review of California's cannabis equity licensing process. Malik stood beside Snoop at the dispensary's grand reopening, this time with TV crews filming not for drama but for hope. "You did that," Malik said. "You could have bowed out, but you stood up." Snoop gave a tired smile. "Wasn't about me. Was never about me." Still, the pressure never fully faded. Security stayed tight. The gate remained double-locked, and Snoop knew he'd always carry a target on his back. But something had shifted. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like a symbol. He felt like a catalyst. That night, as the city glowed under a canvas of headlights and neon, he stood on his balcony watching the world move on. Behind him, the TV was still on. A news anchor said his name with a tone of respect he wasn't used to hearing, and somewhere inside him the fight quieted, just enough to breathe. If this story moved you, if it made you think twice about who really holds the power, then hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. There's another video on screen now, and trust me, it was picked just for you. You're going to love it.